You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast with your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you extraordinarily well. It's our last story for the month of December 2017, issue 135. And like every single year that Clarkesworld has been with you, we kick off a new one, starting in January 2018 with issue 136. We hope you can come back and join us for that one. Our last story is titled Botanica Veneris, 13 Papercuts by Ida Countess Rathangan, and is by Ian McDonald. Ian McDonald is an ambitious and daring writer with a wide range and impressive amount of talent. His novel River of Gods was a finalist for both the Hugo Award and the Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2005, and a novella drawn from it, The Little Goddess, was a finalist for the Hugo and Nebula. He won a Hugo Award in 2007 for his novelette, The Djinn's Wife. He also won the Theodore Sturgeon Award for his story, Tendaleo's Story, and in 2011 won the John W. Campbell Memorial Award for his novel, The Dervish House. His most recent novels are the starting volume of a YA series, Plains Runner, and two sequels, Be My Enemy and Empress of the Sun. His most recent book is a big retrospective collection, The Best of Ian McDonald. Born in Manchester, England in 1960, McDonald has spent most of his life in Northern Ireland and now lives and works in Belfast. You can find Ian at his website, ianmcdonald.livejournal.com. And Ian is no stranger to Clarkesworld. January 2013 brought you Driftings. July 2013 brought you The Dust Assassin. And November 2016 brought you An Eligible Boy. So, my dear listener, I hope you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. Introduction by Maureen N. Gillard. My mother had firm instructions that in case of a house fire, two things required saving: the family photograph album and the Granville hides. I grew up beneath 5 original floral papercuts, utterly heedless of their history or their value. It was only in maturity that I came to appreciate, like so many on this and other worlds, my great-aunt's unique art. Collectors avidly seek original Granville hides on those rare occasions when they turn up at auction. Originals sell for tens of thousands of pounds. This would have amused Ida. 2 years ago, an exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum was sold out months in advance. Dozens of anthologies of prints are still in print. The Botanica Veneris, in particular, is in 15 editions in 23 languages, some of them non-terrain. The last thing the world needs, it would seem, is another Botanica Veneris. Yet the mystery of her final and only visit to Venus still intrigues half a century since her disappearance. When the collected diaries, sketchbooks, and field notes came to me after 50 years in the possession of the Dukes of U, I realized that I had a precious opportunity to tell the true story of my great-aunt's expedition, and of a forgotten chapter in my family's history. The books were in very poor condition, mildewed and blighted in Venus's humid, hot climate. Large parts were ineligible or just simply missing. The narrative was frustratingly incomplete. I have resisted the urge to fill in those blank spaces. It would have been easy to dramatize, fictionalize, even sensationalize. Instead, I have let Ida Granville Hyde speak. Hers is a strong character, attractive voice of a different class, age, and sensibility from ours. But it is authentic, and it is a true voice. The papercuts, of course, speak for themselves. Plate 1. V. Surtio ambulans, the Ducrot's peripatetic wart, known locally as daytime walker, scent, or wander flower, sek. Cut paper, ink, and card. Ah, such a show. At lunch, Het Oy Kran mentioned that a space crosser, the quest for the harvest of the stars, a Marsman, was due to splash down in the lagoon. I said I should like to see that. Apparently I slept through it when I arrived on this world. It meant foregoing the sorbet course, but one does not come to the inner worlds for sorbet. Het Oy Kran put his spider car at our disposal. Within moments, the Princess Latufui and I were swaying in the richly upholstered bubble beneath the 6 strong mechanical legs. Upward it carried us, up the vertiginous lanes and winding staircases, over the walls and balcony gardens, along the buttresses and roof walks, and up the ancient iron ladderways of Ledek Olkoi. The islands of the archipelago are small, their populations vast, and the only way for them to build is upward. Ledek Olkoi resembles Mont Saint-Michel, vastly enlarged and coarsened. Streets have been bridged and built over into a web of tunnels quite impenetrable to non-Ledekers. The Hets simply clamber over the homes and lives of the inferior classes in their nimble spider cars. We came to the belvedere atop the Sarostri, the ancient pharaohs of Ledek Olkoi that once guided mariners past the reefs and atolls of the Toll archipelago. There we clung. My companion, the Princess Latufui, was queasy, vertigo, she claimed, though it might have been the proximity of lunch. The whole Ledek Olkoi beneath us in myriad levels and layers, like the folded petals of a rose. "Should we need glasses?" my companion asked. No need, for at that instant the perpetual layer of gray cloud parted, and a bolt of light like a glowing lance stabbed down from the sky. I glimpsed a dark object fall through the air, then a titanic gout of water go up like a dozen Niagaras. The sky danced with brief rainbows. My companion wrung her hands in delight. She misses the sun terribly. Then the clouds closed again. Rings of waves rippled away from the hull of the space crosser, which floated like a great whale low in the water, though this world boasts marine fauna even more prodigious than terrene whales. My companion clapped her hands and cried aloud in wonder. Indeed, a very fine sight. Already the tugs were heading out from the protecting arms of the ocean dock to bring the ship into the berth. But this was not the finest Ledek Olkoi had to offer. The custom in the archipelago is to sleep on divan balconies for respite from the foul exudations from the inner layers of the city. I had retired from my afternoon reviver. By my watch, though by Venusian great day it was still mid-morning, and would continue to be so for another 2 weeks. A movement by the leg of my divan. What's this? My heart surged. Vi Strutio ambulans. The ambulatory wart blithely climbing my divan. Through my glass I observed its motion. The fat, succulent leaves hold reserves of water, which fuel the coiling and uncoiling of the 3 ambulae, surely modified roots by hydraulic pressure. A simple mechanism, yet human minds see movement and attribute personality and motive. This was not pure hydraulics attracted to light and liquid. This was a plucky little wart on an epic journey of peril and adventure. Over 2 hours I sketched the plant as it climbed my divan, crossed to the balustrade, and continued its journey up the side of Ledek Olkoi. I suppose at any time millions of such flowers are in constant migration across the archipelago, yet a single ambulatory wart was miracle enough for me. Reviver, be damned. I went to my space trunk and unrolled my scissors from their soft chamois wallet. Snip, snap. When a cut demands to be made, my fingers literally itch for the blades. When he learned of my intent, Jen Lal Ket implored me not to go down to Leddickport, but if I insisted, at least take a bodyguard or go armed. I surprised him greatly by asking the name of the best armorer his city could supply. Best shot at the Clarkesworld November shoot, 10 years on the trot. Ledbeck Teltai is the most famous gunsmith in the archipelago. It is illegal to import weaponry from off-planet, an impost, I suspect, resulting from the immense popularity of hunting Ishtari janthars. The pistol they have made me is built to my hand and strength, small as requested, powerful as required, and so worked with spiral and circle, archipelagan, intaglio, that it is a piece of jewelry. Leddickport was indeed a loathsome bruise of alleys and tunnels lit by shifts of gray, watery light through high skylights. Such reeks and stenches. Still, no one ever died of a bad smell. An earthworm alone in an inappropriate place was a novelty, but from the non-humanoid Venusians I drew little more than a look. In my latter years, I have been graced with a physical presence and a destroying stare. The Thek, descended from Central Asian nomads abducted en masse in the 11th century from their bracing steppe, now believe themselves the original humanity and so consider Terrans beneath them, and they expected no better of a subhuman earthwoman. I did turn heads in the bar. I was the only female, humanoid that is, from Carfax's bestiary of inner worlds. I understand that among the semi-aquatic crid, the male is a small, ineffectual symbiotic parasite lodging in the mantle of the female. The barman, a four-armed thent, guided me to the snug where I was to meet my contact. The bar overlooked the ocean harbor. I watched dock workers scurry over the vast body of the space crosser, in and out of hatches that opened in the skin of the ship. I did not like to see those hatches. They ruined its perfection, the precise intact curve of its skin. Lady Granville Hyde? What an oily man, so well lubricated that I did not hear his approach. Stafford Grimes, at your service. He offered to buy me a drink, but I drew the line at that unseemliness. That did not stop him ordering one for himself and sipping it, and several successors, noisily during the course of my questions. Years of Venusian light had turned his skin to wrinkled brown leather. Drinkers' eyes looked out from heavily hooded lids, years of squinting into the ultraviolet. His neck and hands were mottled white, with pockmarks where melanomas had been frozen out. Sunburn, melancholy, and alcoholism, the classic recipe for honorary consuls system-wide, not just on Venus. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. So, you met him? I will never forget him. Pearls of Aphrodite. Size of your head, Lady Ida. There's a fortune waiting for the man. Or woman, I chided, and surreptitiously activated the recording ring beneath my glove. Plate 2. V. Flor Scopulum. The ocean mist flower. The name is a misnomer. The ocean mist flower is not a flower, but a coral animalcule of the aerial reefs of the Tellus Ocean. The seeming petals are absorption surfaces drawing moisture from the frequent ocean fogs of those latitudes. Pistils and stamen bear sticky palps, which function in the same fashion as terrene spiderwebs, trapping prey. Venus boasts an entire ecosystem of marine insects unknown on Earth. This cut is the most three-dimensional of Lady Ida's Botanica Veneris. Reproductions only hint at the sculptural quality of the original. The petals have been curled at the edges over the blunt side of a pair of scissors. Each of the 208 palps has been sprung so that they stand proud from the black paper background. onion paper, hard painted card. The Honorary Consul's Tale. Pearls of Aphrodite, truly the pearls beyond price. The pearls of Staros and Astars. But the cloud reefs are perilous, Lady Ida. Snap a man's body clean in half, those bivalves. Crush his head like a vulpiculin melon. Snare a hand or an ankle and drown him. Aphrodite's pearls are blood pearls. A fortune awaits anyone, my dear, who can culture them. A charming man, Arthur Hyde, that brogue of his, made anything sound like the blessing of heaven itself. Charmed the avios from the trees, but natural, unaffected. It was no surprise to learn he was of aristocratic stock. Quality. You can't hide it. In those days I owned a company fishing trips across the archipelago. The legend of the Uragunta, the island that is a fish, was a potent draw. Imagine hooking one of those. Of course they never did. No, I'd take them out, show them the cloud reefs, the crid hives, the wing fish migration, the air jellies. Get them pissed on the boat, take their photographs next to some thought-out javelin fish they hadn't caught. Simple, easy, honest money. Why, wasn't it enough for me? I had done the trick enough times myself, drink one for the punters too, yet I fell for it. That evening in the Windward Tavern, drinking hot spiced kashash, and the night wind whistling up in the spires of the dead, crid nest heaven like the caged souls of drowned sailors. Drinking for days down the great twilight, his one for my two. Charming, so charming, until I had pledged my boat on his plan. He would buy a planktoneer, an old bucket of a sea skimmer with nary a straight plate or a true rivet in her. He would seed her with spores and send her north on the great circulatory current, like a maritime cloud reef. 5 years that current takes to circulate the globe before it returns to the Arctic waters that birthed it. 5 years is also the time it takes the clam of the Aphrodite to mature. What we call pearls are no such thing. Sperm, Lady Ida, compressed sperm. In waters it dissolves and disperses. Each great dawn, the Tellus Ocean, is white with it. In the air it remains compact, the most prized of all jewels. Enough of fluids. By the time the reef ship reached the deep north, the clams would be mature and the cold water would kill them. It would be a simple task to strip the hulk with high-pressure hoses, harvest the pearls, and bank the fortune. 5 years makes a man fidgety for his investment. Arthur sent us weekly reports from the sea wardens and the crid argosies. Month on month, year on year, I began to suspect that the truth had wandered far from those chart coordinates. I was not alone. I formed a consortium with my fellow investors and chartered a ridgeable. And there at map 60 north, 175 east, we found the ship, or what was left of it. So overgrown was it with clams of Aphrodite. Our investment had been lined and lashed by 4 crid cantoons. As we arrived, they were in the process of stripping it with halberds and grappling hooks. Already the decks and superstructure were green with clam meat and purple with crid blood. Arthur stood in the stern, frantically waving a cross of St. Patrick flag, gesturing for us to get out, get away. Crid pirates were plundering our investment. Worse, Arthur was their prisoner. We were an unarmed aerial gadabout, so we turned tail and headed for the nearest sea warden castle to call for aid. Charmer. Bloody buggering Charmer. I know he's your flesh and blood, but I should have thought. If he'd been captured by crid pirates, they wouldn't have let him wave a bloody flag to warn us. When we arrived with a constabulary cruiser, all we found was the capsized hulk of the planktoneer and a flock of avios gorging on clam offal. Duped. Pirates my arse, excuse me. Those 4 cantoons were laden to the gunwales with contract workers. He never had any intention of splitting the profits with us. The last we heard of him, he had converted the lot into Bank of Ishtar bearer bonds better than gold at Yeztok and headed in country. That was 12 years ago. Your brother cost me my business, Lady Granville Hyde. It was a good business. I could have sold it, made a little pile, bought a place on Luddick Scient, maybe even made it back to Earth to see out my days to a decent calendar instead. Ugh, what's the use? Please believe me when I say that I bear your family no ill will, only your brother. If you do succeed in finding him, and if I haven't, I very much doubt you will, remind him of that, and that he still owes me. Plate 3. V. Lilium Aphrodite. The archipelago sea lily, walk the water in Thek. There is no comprehensible translation from Crid. A ubiquitous and fecund diurnal plant, it grows so aggressively in the Venerian great day that by gray evening bays and harbors are clogged with blossoms and passage must be cleared by special bloom-breaker ships. Painted paper, watermarked Venerian tissue, inks, and scissor-scrolled card. So dear, so admirable a companion, the Princess Latafui. She knew I had been stinting with the truth in my excuse of shopping for paper when I went to see the honorary consul down in Leddick Port, especially when I returned without any paper. I busied myself in the days before our sailing to Ishtaria on 2 cuts, the sea lily and the ocean mist flower, even if it is not a flower according to my Carfax bestiary of the inner worlds. She was not fooled by my industry, and I felt soiled and venal. All Tongan women have dignity, but the princess possesses such an innate nobility that the thought of lying to her offends nature itself. The moral order of the universe is upset. How can I tell her that my entire visit to this world is a tissue of fabrications? Weather again, fair, with the invariable light winds and interminable gray sky. I am of Ireland. Supposedly we thrive on permanent overcast, but even I find myself pining for a glimpse of sun. Poor Latafui. She grows wan for want of light. Her skin is waxy, her hair lusterless. We have a long time to wait for a glimpse of sun. Carfax states that the sky clears partially at the dawn and sunset of Venus's great day. I hope to be off this world by then. Our ship, the 17 notable navigators, is well built, swift Crid Jaikuna. Among the Crid the females are the seafarers, but they equal the males of my world in the richness and fecundity of their taxonomy of ships. A Jaikuna, it seems, is a fast catamaran steam packet, built for the archipelago trade. I have no sea legs, but the 17 notable navigators was the only option that would get us to Ishtaria in reasonable time. Princess Latafui tells me it is a fine and sturdy craft, though built to alien dimensions. She has banged her head most painfully several times. Captain highly able at forecasting, recognizing a sister seafarer, engages the princess in lengthy conversations of an island-hopping archipelagan nature, which remind Latafui greatly of her home islands. The other humans aboard are a lofty Thek, and Hugo von Trachtenberg, a German in a very high regard of himself, of that feckless type who thinks themselves gentlemen adventurers but are little more than grandiose fraudsters. Nevertheless, he speaks Crid as truly as any Terrene can, and acts as a translator between princess and captain. It is a Venerian truth universally recognized that 2 unaccompanied women travelers must be in need of a male protector. The dreary hours Herr von Trachtenberg fills with his notion of gay chit-chat, and in the evenings the interminable games of Barrington. Von Trachtenberg claims to have gambled the game professionally in the cloud casinos. I let him win enough for the sensation to go to his head, then take him game after game. 10 times champion of the County Kildare Mixed Bridge Championships is more than enough to beat his hide at Barrington. Still, he does not get the message. Yes, I'm a wealthy widow, but I have no interest in jejune Prussians. Thus I retire to my cabin to begin my studies for the Crescite Dolium cut. Has this world a more splendid sight than the harbor of Yeztok? It is a city most perpendicular, of pillars and towers, masts and spires. The tall funnels of the ships, bright with the heraldry of the Crid maritime families, blend with god-poles and lighthouses and custom towers and cranes of the harbor, which in turn yield to the tower houses and campaniles of the Bourse, the whole rising to merge with the trees of the Ishtarian littoral forest, pierced here and there by the conical roofs of the estancias of the Thent Zavars, and the gilded figures of the star gods on their minarets. That forest also rises, a cloth of green, to break into the rocky palisades of the ex-palisades. And there, oh how thrilling, glimpse through the mountain passes unimaginably high, a glittering glimpse of the snows of the Altiplano. Snow, cold, bliss. It is only now, after reams of purple prose, that I realize what I was trying to say of Yeztok. Simply, it is city as botany, stems and trunks, boles and bracts, root and branch. And out there in the city that is a forest is the man who will guide me farther in my brother's footsteps, Mr. Daniel O'Keering. Plate 4. V. Crescite Dolium. The gourd of plenty. A ubiquitous climbing plant of the Ishtari littoral, the gourd of plenty is so well adapted to urban environments that it would be considered a weed. But for the gourds, which contain a nectar prized as delicacy among the coastal thents, it is toxic to both Crid and humans. The paper cut bears a note on the true scale written in gold ink. The Hunter's Tale. Have you seen a Janthar? Really seen a Janthan? Bloody, magnificent, in the same way that a hurricane or exploding volcano is magnificent. Magnificent and appalling. The films can never capture the sense of scale. Imagine a house with fangs and tusks and spines, a house that can hit 40 miles per hour. The films can never get the sheer sense of mass and speed, or the elegance and grace that some so huge can be so nimble, so agile. And what the films can never, ever capture is the smell. They smell of curry. Vindaloo curry. Venerian body chemistry, but that's why you never, ever eat curry on an Asjan. Out in the stalva, the grass is tall enough to hide even a Janthar. The smell is the only warning you get. You catch a whiff of Vindaloo, you run. You always run. When you hunt Janthar, there will always be a moment when it turns, and the Janthar hunts you. You run. If you're lucky, you'll draw it onto the gun line. If not, the Thons of the Stalva have been hunting them this way for centuries, coming of age thing, like my own Messiah people. They give you a spear and point you in the general direction of a lion. Yes, I've killed a lion. I've also killed a Janthar and run from even more. The Thons have a word for it. The Nem. The fool who runs. He applied to be a Nem for O'Keering Asjans. Claimed experience over at Hundere with Costa's hunting company. I didn't need to call Costa to know he was a bullshitter. But I liked the fellow. He had a charm and didn't take himself too seriously. I knew he'd never last 5 minutes as a Nem. Took him on as a camp steward. They like the personal service, the hunting types. If you can afford to fly yourself and your friends on a jolly to Venus, you can have If you can afford to fly yourself and your friends on a jolly to Venus, you expect to have someone to wipe your ass for you. Charm works on these bastards. He'd wheedle his way into their affections and get them drinking. They'd invite him, and before you knew it, he was getting their life stories, and a lot more beside, out of them. He was a careful cove, too. He'd always stay one drink behind them and be up early and sharp-eyed as a hawk the next morning. Bring them their bed tea, fluff up their pillows. Always came back with the fattest tip. I knew what he was doing, but he did it so well. I'd taken him on, hadn't I? So, an aristocrat. Why am I not surprised? Within 3 trips I'd made him maître de la chasse. Heard he'd made and lost 1 fortune already. Is that true? A jewel thief. Why am I not surprised by that either? The 30th Earl of Mar fancied him as a sporting type, booked a 3-month grand asjan, he and 5 friends shooting their way up the great littoral to the Stelva, wives, husbands, lovers, personal servants, 20 thent asjanis, and a caravan of 40 grappa to carry their bags and baggage. They had 1 grap just for the champagne. They'd shipped every last drop of it from Earth. Made so much noise we cleared the forest for 10 miles around. Bloody brutes. We'd set up hides at water holes so they could blast away from point-blank range. That's not hunting. Every day they'd send a dozen bearers back with hides and trophies. I'm surprised there was anything left, the amount of metal they pumped into those poor beasts, the stench of rot. God, the sky was black with carrion avios. Your brother excelled himself, suave, in control, charming, witty, the soul of attention. Oh, most attentive, especially to the Lady Mar. She was no knack-hand with guns, but I think she tired of the boys' club antics of the gents. Or maybe it was just the sheer relentless slaughter. Either way, she increasingly remained in camp, where your brother attended to her. Aristocrats, they sniff each other out. So Arthur pulled the Lady Mar while we blasted our bloody, brutal, bestial way up to the high Stelva. Nothing would do the 30th Earl but to go after Janthar. 3 out of 5 Asjanis never even come across a Janthar. 10% of hunters who go for Janthar don't come back, only 10%. He liked those odds. 25 sleeps we were up there, while great day turned to great evening. I wasn't staying for the night on the Stelva. It's just not a different season. It's a different world. Things come out of sleep, out of dens, out of the ground. No, not for all the fortune of the Earls of Mar would I spend a night on the Stelva. By then we had abandoned the main camp. We carried bear rations, sleeping out beside our mounts with one ear turned to the radio. Then the call came. Jantha sign. And Asjani had seen a fresh path through a speargrass meadow 5 miles to the north of us. In a moment we were mounted and tearing through the high Stelva. The Earl rode like a madman, whipping his grap to reckless speed. Damn fool. Of all the Stelva's many grasslands, the tall pike grass meadows were the most dangerous. A Janthar could be right next to you and you wouldn't even see it. And the pike grass disorients, reflects sounds, turns you around. There was no advising the Earl of Mar and his chums, though. His wife hung back. She claimed her mount had picked up a little lameness. Why did not say something when Arthur went back to accompany the Lady Mar, but my concern was how to get everyone out of the pike grass alive. Then the Earl stabbed his shock goad into the flank of his grap, and before I could do anything, he was off. My radio crackled. Form a gun line. The mad fool was going to run the Janthar himself. Aristocrats, your pardon, ma'am. Moments later, his grap came crashing back through the pike grass to find its herd mates. My only hope was to form a gun line and hope and pray that he would lead the Janthar right into our crossfire. It takes a lot of ordnance to stop a Janthar, and in this kind of tall grass terrain where you can hardly see your hand in front of your face, I had to set the firing positions just right. so the idiots wouldn't blow each other to bits. I got them into some semblance of position. I held the center, the Lacou, your brother, and the Lady Ma. I ordered to take the Jeft and Garonne, the last two positions of the left wing of the gun line. Finally, I got them all to radio silence. The Thuns teach you how to be still, and how to listen, and how to know what is safe and what is death. Silence, then, a sustained crashing. My spotter called me, but I did not need her to tell me that was the sound of death. I could only hope that the Earl remembered to run in a straight line and not to trip over anything, and that the gun line would fire in time. 100 hopes. 100 ways to die. Most terrifying sound in the world, a janthar in full pursuit. It sounds like it's coming from everywhere at once. I yelled to the gun line, "Steady there, steady. Hold your fire." Then I smelled it. Clear, sharp, unmistakable. Curry. I put up the cry, "Vindaloo! Vindaloo!" and there was the mad Earl breaking out of the cane. Madman! What was he thinking? He was in the wrong place, heading in the wrong direction. The only ones who could cover him were Arthur and Lady Ma, and there behind him, the janthar, bigger than any I had ever seen. The mother of all janthar, the queen of the high stalva. I froze. We all froze. We might as well try to kill a mountain. I yelled to Arthur and Lady Ma, "Shoot! Shoot now!" Nothing. Shoot for the love of all the stars. Nothing. Shoot! Why didn't they shoot? The Thuns found the 13th Earl of Mar, spread over 100 yards. They hadn't shot because they weren't there. They were at it like dogs, your brother and the Lady Ma, back when they had left the party. They hadn't even heard the janthar. Strange woman, the Lady Ma. Her face barely moved when she learned of her husband's terrible death, like it was no surprise to her. Of course, she became immensely rich when Will went through. There was no question of your brother's ever working for me again. Shame. I liked him. But I can't help thinking that he was as much used as user in the sordid little affair. Did the Lady of Mar murder her husband? Too much left to chance. Yet it was a very convenient accident, and I can't help but think that the 13th Earl knew what his lady was up to, and a surfeit of cuckoldry drove him to prove he was a man. The janthar hunted the highlands for years, became a legend. Every aristo idiot on the inner worlds who fancied himself a great terrene hunter went after it. None of them ever got it, though it claimed 5 more lives. The human slayer of the Silva. In the end, it stumbled into a thun, cut trap, and died on a pungy stake, eaten away by gangrene. So we all pass. No final run, no gun line, no trophies. Your brother, as I said, I liked him, though I never trusted him. He left when the scandal broke, went up country, over the Stalva and into the Palisade country. I had a rumor he'd joined a mercenary Javrost unit, fighting up on the Altiplano. Botany, is it? Safer business than big game. Plate 5. V. trifex aculatum. Stanage's bird-eating triffid, native of the great littoral forest of Ishtaria. Carnivorous in its habits, it lures smaller nectar-feeding avios with its sweet exudate, then stings them to death with its whip-like style and sticky poisonous stigma. Cut paper inks folded tissue. The princess is brushing her hair. This she does every night, whether in Tonga or Ireland, on Earth, or aboard a space crosser, or on Venus. The ritual is invariable. She kneels, unpins, and uncoils her tight bun and lets her hair fall into its natural length, which is to the waist. Then she takes 2 silver-backed brushes, and with great and vigorous strokes brushes her hair from the crown of her head to the tips. 100 strokes, which she counts in Tongan rhyme, that I very much love to hear. When she is done, she cleans the brushes, returns them to the baize-lined case, then takes a bottle of coconut oil and works it through her hair. The air is suffused with the sweet smell of coconut. It reminds me so much of the wind flowers of home in the spring. She works patiently and painstakingly, and when she has finished, she rolls her hair back into its bun and pins it. A simple, dedicated, repetitive task, but it moves me almost to tears. Her beautiful hair. How dearly I love my friend Latufui. We are sleeping at a Hovanda, a tent roadside inn on the Grand North Road in Canton Hoa in the great littoral forest. Tree branches scratch at my window shutters. The heat, the humidity, the animal noise are all overpowering. We are far from the cooling breezes of the Vestal Sea. I wilt, though Latufui relishes the warmth. The arboreal creatures of this forest are deeper voiced than in Ireland, bellings and honkings and deep booms. How I wish we could spend the night here. Great night, for my Carfax tells me that the Ishtarian littoral forest contains this world's greatest concentration of luminous creatures, fungi, plants, animals, and those peculiarly Venerian phyla in between. It is almost as bright as day. I have made some daytime studies of the starflower. No Venerian botanica can be complete without it, but for it to succeed, I must hope that there is a supply of luminous paint at Lugaza, where we embark for the crossing of the Stalva. My dear Latufui has finished now, and closed away her brushes in their green baize-lined box. So faithful and true a friend. We met in Nuku'alofa on the Tongan leg of my botanic of the South Pacific. The king, her father, had issued the invitation. He was a keen collector, and at the reception I was introduced to his very large family, including Latufui, and was immediately charmed by her sense, dignity, and vivacity. She invited me to tea the following day, a very grand affair, where she confessed that as a minor princess her only hope of fulfillment was in marrying well, an institution in which she had no interest. I replied that I had visited the South Pacific as a time apart from Lord Rathangan. It had been clear for some years that he had no interest in me, nor I in him. We were 2 noble ladies of compatible needs and temperaments, and there and then we became firmest friends and inseparable companions. When Patrick shot himself and Rathangan passed into my possession, it was only natural that the princess move in with me. I cannot conceive of life without Latufui, yet I am deeply ashamed that I have not been totally honest in my motivations for this Venerian expedition. Why can I not trust? Oh, secrets. Oh, simulations. Vis de la flores, noctiscendentis. The Venerian starflower. Its name is the same in tent, tek, and crid, now a popular terrestrial garden plant where it is known as glowberry, though the name is a misnomer. Its appearance is a bunch of night luminous white berries, though the berries are in fact globular bracts, with the bioluminescent flower at the center. Selective strains of this flower traditionally provide illumination in Venerian settlements during the great night. Paper, luminous paint, not reproduced. The original papercut is mildly radioactive. By high train to Kamahu. We have our own carriage. It is of aged gother wood, still fragrant and spicy. The hammocks do not suit me at all. Indeed, the whole train has a rocking, swaying lollop that makes me seasick. In the caravanserai at Lugasa, the contraption looked both ridiculous and impractical. But here in the high grass, its ingenuity reveals itself. The 20-foot high wheels carry us high above the grass, though I am in fear of grass fires. The steam tractor at the head of the train does throw off the most ferocious pother of soot and embers. I am quite content to remain in my carriage and work on my Stavla grass study. I think this may be my most sculptural. The swaying makes for many a slip with the scissor, but I think I have caught the feathery, almost downy nature of the flower heads. Of a maritime people, the princess is at home in this rolling ocean of grass and spends much of her time on the observation balcony, watching the patterns the wind draws across the grasslands. It was there that she fell into conversation with the Honorable Cormac de Boutillier, a fellow Irishman. Inevitably, he ingratiated himself, and within minutes was talking tea in our carriage. The inner worlds are infested with young men claiming to be the junior sons of minor Irish gentry, but a few minutes' gentle questioning revealed not only that he was indeed the Honorable Cormac of the Beguenelstown de Boutilliers, but a relative close enough to know of my husband's demise and the scandal of the Blue Empress. Our conversation went like this. Himself. The Grange Gorman hides. My father used to knock around with your elder brother. What was he called? Myself. Richard. The younger brother, wasn't he a bit of a black sheep? I remember there was this tremendous scandal. Some jewel, a sapphire as big as a thrush's egg. Yes, that was the expression they used in the papers. A thrush's egg. What was it called? The Blue Empress? Yes, that was it. Your grandfather was presented it by some Martian princess. Services rendered. He helped her escape across the Tharsis steppe in the Revolution of 11, then organized the White Brigades to help her regain the Jasper throne. Your brother, not the old boy. You woke up one morning to find the stone gone and him vanished. Stolen. I could see that Princess Latafui found the Honorable Cormac's bluntness distressing. But if one claims the privilege of a noble family, one must also claim the shames. It was never proved that Arthur stole the Blue Empress. No. But you know how tongues wag in the country, and his disappearance was, you must admit, timely. How long ago was that now? God, I must have been a wee gossoon. 15 years. 15 years, and not a word. Do you know if he's even alive? We believe he fled to the inner worlds. Every few years we hear of a sighting, but most of them are so contrary we dismiss them. He made his choice. As for the Blue Empress, broken up and sold long ago, I don't doubt. And here I find you on a jaunt across one of the inner worlds. I'm creating a new album of Papercuts, the Botanica Veneris. Of course, if I may make so bold, Lady Rathangan, the Blue Empress, do you believe Arthur took it? And I made him no verbal answer, but gave him the smallest shake of my head. Princess Latafui had been restless all this evening. The time before sleep, that is. Great evening, with still many Terren days off. Can we ever truly adapt to this monstrous Venerian calendar? Arthur has been on this world for 15 years. Has he drifted not just to another world, but another clock, another calendar? I worked on my Stavla grass cut. I find that curving the leaf-bearing nodes gives the necessary three-dimensionality. But my heart was not in it. Latafui sipped at tea and fumbled at stitching, and pushed newspapers around until eventually she threw open the cabin door in frustration, and demanded that I join her on the balcony. The rolling travel of the high train made me grip the rail for dear life, but the high plane was as sharp and fresh as if starched. And there, a long line on the horizon beyond the belching smokestack and pumping pistons of the tractor, were the Palisades of X. A gray wall from one horizon to the other, clouds hid the peaks like a curtain lowered from the sky. Dark against the gray mountains, I saw the spires of the observatories of Camahu. This was the Thent homeland, for among those towers and minarets is a Huntafi, a tent opium den, owned by the person who might be able to tell me the next part of my brother's story, a story increasingly disturbing and dark, a person who is not human. Ida, dear friend, there is a thing I must ask you. Anything, dear Latafui. I must tell you, it is not a thing that can be asked softly. My heart turned over in my chest. I knew what Latafui would ask. Ida, have you come to this world to look for your brother? She did me the courtesy of a direct question, no preamble, no preliminary sifting through her doubts and evidences. I owed it a direct answer. Yes, I said, I have come to find Arthur. I thought so. For how long? Since Ledek Olkoi? I cannot say the words right. When you went to get papers and gum and returned empty-handed. I went to see Mr. Stafford Grimes. I had information that he had met my brother soon after his arrival on this world. He directed me to Mr. O'Keering, a retired Asjan hunter in Yestok. And Kamau? Is this another link in the chain? It is, but the Botanica is no sham. I have an obligation to my backers. You know the state of my finances as well as I, Latafui. The late Count Rathangan was a profligate man. He ran the estate into the ground. I could wish you had trusted me. All those weeks of planning and organizing. The maps, the itineraries, the tickets, the transplanetary calls to agents and factors. I was so excited. A journey to another world. But for you, there was always something else. None of that was the whole truth. None of it was honest. Oh, my dear Latafui. But how could I say that I had not told her because I feared what Arthur might have become? Fears that seemed to be borne out by every ruined life that had touched his. What would I find? Did anything remain of the wild, carefree boy I remembered chasing old Bunty the dog across the summer lawns of Grange Gorman? Would I recognize him? Worse, would he listen to me? There was a wrong to right, an old debt to be cancelled. It's a family thing. I live in your house, but not in your family, Princess Latafui said. Her words were barbed with truth. They tore me. We would not do that in Tonga. Your ways are different, and I thought I was more than a companion. Oh, my dear Latafui. I took her hands in mine. My dear, dear Latafui, you are far, far more to me than a companion. You are my life. But you, of all people, should understand my family. We are on another world, but we are not so far from Rathangan, I think. I am seeking Arthur, and I do not know what I will find, but I promise you, what he says to me, I will tell you. Everything. Now she laid her hands over mine, and there we stood, cupping hands on the balcony rail, watching the needle spires of Kamahu rise from the grass spears of the Stalva. V. Valum K. Phonum. Stalva Pike Grass. Another non-terrene that is finding favor in terrestrial ornamental gardens. Earth never receives sufficient sunlight for it to attain its full Stalva height, yet in the Stalva tent dialect. Card, onion skin paper, corrugated paper, paint. This paper cut is unique in that it unfolds into 3 parts. The original, in the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin, is always displayed unfolded. The Mercenary's Tale. In the name of the leader of the starry skies and the ever-circling spiritual family, welcome to my Hundafi. May Apsas speak. May Gavanda sing. May the two impart their secrets. I understand completely that you have not come to drink, but the greeting is standard. We pride ourselves on being most traditional Hundavi in Exa Canton. Is the music annoying? No. Most Terreans find it aggravating. It's an essential part of the Hundavi experience, I'm afraid. Your brother, yes. How could I forget him? I owe him my life. He fought like a man who hated fighting. Up on the Altiplano, when we smashed open the potteries and set the porcelain towers afire up and down the valley of the kilns, there were those who blazed with love and joy at the slaughter, and those whose faces were so dark it was as if their souls were clogged with soot. Your brother was one of those. Human expressions are hard for us to read. Your faces are wood like masks. But I saw his face and knew that he loathed what he did. That was what made him the best of Javrosts. I am an old career soldier. I have seen many, many come to our band. The ones in love with violence, unless they can take discipline. We turn them away. But when a mercenary hates what he does for his silver, there must be a greater darkness driving him. There is a thing they hate more than the violence they do. Are you sure the music is tolerable? Our harmonies and chord patterns apparently create unpleasant electrical resonance in the human brain, like small seizures. We find it most reassuring, like the rhythm of the kittening womb. Your brother came to us in the dawn of Great Day 6817. He could ride a grap, bivouac, cook, and was handy with bolt and blade. We never ask questions of our Javros. In time they answer them all themselves, but rumors blow on the wind like Thagun down. He was a minor aristocrat. He was a gambler. He was a thief. He was a murderer. He was a seducer. He was a traitor. Nothing to disqualify him, sufficient to recommend him. In old days, the Duke of Yu disputed mightily with her neighbor the Duke of Hetetin over who rightly ruled the Altiplano and its profitable potteries. From time immemorial, it had been a place beyond, independently minded and stubborn of spirit, with little respect for gods or dukes. Wars were fought down generations, laying waste to fames and fortunes, and when in the end the House of Yu prevailed, the peoples of the plateau had forgotten they had ever lords and mistresses in depths of fealty. It is a law of earth and stars alike that people should be well governed, obedient, and quiet in their ways, so the Duke of Yu embarked on a campaign of civil discipline. Her house core had been decimated in the porcelain wars, so House Yu hired mercenaries. Among them, my former unit, Gelets, Javrosts. They speak of us still, up on the plateau. We are the monsters of their great nights, the haunters of their children's dreams. We are legend. We are Gelets, Javrosts. We are the new demons. For one great day and great night we ran free. We torched the topless star shrines of Chef Panda and watched them burn like chimneys. We smashed the funerary jars and trampled the bones of the illustrious dead of Turin. We overturned the houses of the holy, burned elders and kits in their homes. We lassoed rebels and dragged them back behind our grappa, round and round the village, until all that remained was a bloody rope. We forced whole communities from their homes, driving them across the Altiplano until the snow heaped their bodies. And Arthur was at my side. We were not friends. There is too much history on this world for human intent to ever be that. He was my Badoon. You do not have a concept for that, let alone a word. A passionate colleague, a brother who is not related, a fellow devotee. We killed, and we killed, and we killed. And in our wake came the Duke of Yu's soldiers restoring order, rebuilding towns, offering defense against the murderous renegades. It was all strategy. The Duke of Yu knew the Platooners would never love her, but she could be their savior. Therefore, a campaign of final outrages was planned. Such vileness. We were ordered to Glahenta, a pottery town at the head of Valley of the Kilns. There we would enter the glatunas, the birthing creches, and slaughter every infant down to the last kit. We rode, Arthur at my side, and though human emotions are strange and distant to me, I knew them well enough to read the storm in his heart. Night snow was falling as we entered Glahenta, lit by 10,000 starflowers. The people locked their doors and cowered from us. Through the heart of town we rode, past the great conical kilns to the glatunas. Matras flung themselves before our grappa. We rode them down. Arthur's face was darker than the great midnight. He broke formation and rode up to Gellet himself. I went to him. I saw words between your brother and our commander. I did not hear them. Then Arthur drew his blasket and in a single shot blew the entire top of Gellet's body to ash. In the fracas, I shot down 3 of our troop. Then we were racing through the glowing streets, our hooves clattering on the porcelain cobbles, the erstwhile Gellet's Javros behind us. And so, we saved them. For the Duke of Yu had arranged it so that her ducal guard would fall upon us even as we attacked, annihilate us, and achieve 2 notable victories, presenting themselves as the saviors of Glahenta and destroying any evidence of their scheme. Your brother and I sprung the trap, but we did not know until the leagues and months later, far from the Altiplano, at the foot of the 10,000 stairs we parted. We thought it safer. We never saw each other again, though I heard he has gone back up to the stairs to the Pellerines. And if you do find him, please don't tell him what became of me. This is a shameful place. And I am ashamed that I have told you such dark and bloody truths about your brother. But at the end, he was honorable. He was right. That he saves the guilty, an unintended consequence. Our lives are made up of such. Certainly, we can continue outside of the Hundavi porch. I did warn you that the music was irritating to human sensibilities. Vi Lucerna Vesperum, Schaeferia, the evening candle, a solitary tree of the foothills of the ex-palisades of Ishtaria. The Schaeferia is noted for its many upright, luminous blossoms, which flower in Venerian great evening and great dawn. Only the blossoms are reproduced, card, folded and cut tissue, luminous paint, not reproduced. The original is also slightly radioactive. A cog railway runs from Kamahu terminus to the convent of the starry Pellerines. The Stars View Special takes pilgrims to see the stars and planets. Our carriage is small, luxurious, intricate, the ingenious in that typically tent fashion, and terribly tedious. The track has been constructed in a helix inside Auk Mountain, so our journey consists of interminable noisy spells inside the tunnel, punctuated by brief, blinding moments of clarity as we emerge onto the open face of the mountain. Not for the vertiginous. Thus hour upon hour we spiral our way up Mount Auk. Princess Latafui and I play endless games of moon whist, but our minds are not in it. My forebodings have darkened after my conversation with Tent Hundavi owner in Kamahu. The princess is troubled by my anxiety. Finally, she can bear it no more. Tell me about the Blue Empress. Tell me everything. I grew up with 2 injunctions in case of fire. Save the dogs and the Blue Empress. For almost all my life, the jewel was a ghost stone, present but unseen, haunting Grange Gorman and the lives it held. I have a memory from earliest childhood of seeing the stone, never touching it, but I do not trust the memory. Imaginings too easily become memories, memories, imaginings. We are not so free in so many things, we of the landed class. Richard would inherit, Arthur would make a way in the world, and I would marry as well as I could, land to land. The barony of Rathangan was considered one of the most desirable in Kildare, despite Patrick's seeming determination to drag it to the bankruptcy court. A match was made, and he was charming and bold, a fine sportsman, and a very handsome man. It was an equal match, snide comments from both halves of the county. The Blue Empress was part of my treasure, on the strict understanding that it remained in the custody of my lawyers. Patrick argued, and it was there that I first got an inkling of his true character. And the wedding was off, the wedding was on, the wedding was off, the wedding was on again, and the banns posted. A viewing was arranged for his people to itemize and value the Hyde treasure. For the first time in long memory, the Blue Empress was taken from its safe and displayed to human view. Blue, as the wide Atlantic it was, and as boundless and clear. You could lose yourself forever in the light inside that gem, and yes, it was the size of a thrush's egg. And then, the moment that all the stories agree on, the lights failed. Not so unusual at Grange Gorman. The same grandfather who brought back the Blue Empress installed the hydro plant, and when they came back on again, the sapphire was gone. Bays and case, and everything. We called upon the honor of all present, ladies and gentlemen alike. The lights would be put out for 5 minutes, and when they were switched back on, the Blue Empress would be back in the Hyde treasury. It was not. Our people demanded we call the police. Patrick's people, mindful of their client's attraction to scandal, were less insistent. We would make further appeal to honor. If the Blue Empress was not back by morning, then we would call the guards. Not only was the Blue Empress still missing, so was Arthur. We called the Garda Seoshana. The last we heard was that Arthur had left for the inner worlds. The wedding went ahead. It would have been a greater scandal to call it off. We were two families alike in notoriety. Patrick could not let it go. He went to his grave believing that Arthur and I had conspired to keep the Blue Empress out of his hands. I have no doubt that Patrick would have found a way of forcing me to sign over possession of the gem to him and would have sold it. Wastrel. As for the Blue Empress, I feel like I am very near to Arthur now. One cannot run forever. We will meet, and the truth will be told. Then light flooded our carriage as the train emerged from the tunnel onto the final ramp, and there before us, its spires and domes dusted with snow blown from the high peaks, was the convent of the starry Pellerines. Vi Aquilonis vitis visonum, the northern littoral, or ghost vine. A common climber of the forests of the southern slopes of the Ishtari Altiplano, domesticated and widely grown in tent garden terraces. Its white trumpet-shaped flowers are attractive, but the plant is revered for its berries. When crushed, the infused liquor known as pula creates powerful auditory hallucinations in Venerian physiology and forms the basis of the tent mystical Hundavi cult. In Terens, it produces a strong euphoria and sense of omnipotence. Alkaloid-infused paper, Ida Granville Hyde used tent ghost vine liquor to tint and infuse the paper in this cut. It is reported to be still mildly hallucinogenic. The Pilgrim's Tale. You'll come out to the Belvedere. It's supposed to be off limits to Terrains. Technically, blasphemy, sacred space and all that, but the Pellerins turn a blind eye. Do excuse the cough. Ghastly, isn't it? Sounds like a bag of bloody loose change. I don't suppose the cold air does much for my dear old alveoli, but at this stage it's all a matter of damn. That's Gloaming Peak there. You won't see it until the cloud clears. Every great evening, every great dawn. For a few Earth days at a time, the cloud breaks. It goes up, oh, so much farther than you could ever imagine. You look up and up and up, and beyond it you see the stars. That's why the Pellerines came here, such a sensible religion. The stars are gods. One star, one God, simple, no faith, no heaven, no punishment, no sin. Just look up and wonder. The blue pearl, that's what they call our Earth. I wonder if that's why they care for us. Because we're descended from divinity. If only they knew. They really are very kind. Excuse me. Bloody, marvelous stuff, this tent brew. I'm in no pain at all. I find it quite reassuring that I shall sip from this too rancid flesh swaddled in a blanket of beatific thoughts and analgesic glow. They're very kind, the Pellerines. Very kind. Now, look to your right. There, do you see it? That staircase cut into the rock winding up and up and up. The 10,000 stairs. That's the old way to the Altiplano. Everything went up and down those steps. People, animals, goods, palanquins, and stick men, traders and pilgrims and armies. Your brother. I watched him go from this very Belvedere 3 years ago, or was it 5? You never really get used to the great day. Time blurs. We were tremendous friends, the way that addicts are. You wouldn't have come this far without realizing some truths about your brother. Our degradation unites us. Dear thing. How we'd set the world to rights over flask after flask of this stuff. He realized the truth of this place early on. It's the way to the stars. God's waiting room. And we, the squire of shambling wrecks, wander through it, dazzled by our glimpses of the stars. But he was a dear friend, a dear, dear friend, dear Arthur. We're all darkened souls here, but he was haunted. Things done and things left undone, like the prayer book says. My father was a vicar. Can't you tell? Arthur never spoke completely about this time with the Chevros. He hinted, I think, he wanted to tell me very much, but was afraid of giving me his nightmares. That old saw about a problem shared being a problem halved. Damnable lie. A problem shared is a problem doubled, but I would find him up here all times of the great day and night, watching the staircase and the caravans and stick convoys going up and down. Altiplano porcelain, he'd say. Finest in all the worlds. So fine you can read the Bible through it. Every cup, every plate, every vase and bowl was portered down those stairs on the shoulders of a stickman. You know he served up on the Altiplano in the Duke of U's pacification. I wasn't here then, but Aggers was, and he said you could see the smoke going up, endless plumes of smoke, so thick the sky didn't clear, and the Pellerines went for a whole great day without seeing the stars. All Arthur would say about it was that it'll make some fine china. That's what made porcelain from the Valley of the Kilns so fine. Bones, the bones of the dead ground up into powder. He would never drink from a valley cup. He said it was drinking from a skull. Here's another thing about addicts. You never get rid of it. All you do is replace one addiction with another. The best you can hope for is that it's a better addiction. Some become God addicts. Some throw themselves into worthy deeds or self-improvement or fine thoughts or helping others. God help us all. Me, my lovely little vice is sloth. I really am an idle little bugger. It's so easy letting the seasons slip away, slothful days and indolent nights, coughing my life up one chunk at a time. For Arthur, it was the visions. Arthur saw wonders and horrors, angels and demons, hopes and fears. True visions. the things that drive men to glory or death. Visionary visions. It lay up on the altiplano, beyond the twists and turns of the 10,000 steps. I could never comprehend what it was, but it drove him, devoured him, ate his sleep, ate his appetite, ate his body and his soul and his sanity. It was worse in the great night. Everything's worse in the great night. The snow would come swirling down the staircase, and he saw things in it, faces, heard voices. The faces and voices of the people who had died. Up there on the altiplano, he had to follow them, go up into the valley of the kilns, where he would ask the people to forgive him or kill him. And he went. I couldn't stop him. I didn't want to stop him. Can you understand that? I watched him from this very belvedere. The Pellerines are not our warders. Any of us is free to leave. At any time, though I have never seen anyone leave but Arthur. He left in the evening with the lilac light catching gloaming peak. He never looked back, not a glance to me. I watched him climb the steps to that bend there. That's where I lost sight of him. I never saw or heard of him again. But stories come down the stairs with the stickmen, and they make their way even to this little eyrie. Stories of a seer, a visionary. I look, and I imagine I see smoke rising up there on the altiplano. It's a pity you won't be here to see the clouds break around the gloaming, or look at the stars. V. Jeantrick Knives, Mother of Snows, direct translation from Tent. Ground Siver, high alpine of the X-Palisades. The plant forms extensive carpets of thousands of minute white blossoms. The most intricate papercut in the Botanica Veneris. Each floret is 3 millimeters in diameter. Paper, ink, gouache. A high-stepping spider car took me up the 10,000 steps, past caravans of stickmen, spines bent, shoulders warped beneath brutal loads of finest porcelain. The 12 cuts of the Botanica Veneris I have given to the princess, along with descriptions and botanical notes. She would not let me leave, clung to me, racked with great sobs of loss and fear. It was dangerous, a sullen land with great night coming. I could not convince her of my reason for heading up the stairs alone, for they did not convince even me. The one true reason I could not tell her. How I have been despicable to her, my dearest friend, my love. But worse than that, false. She stood watching my spider car climb the steps until a curve in the staircase took me out of her sight. Must the currency of truth always be falsehood? Now I think of her spreading her long hair out and brushing it, firmly, directly, beautifully, and the pen falls from my fingers. Egahazy is a closed city, hunched, hiding, tight. Its streets are narrow, its buildings lean toward one another, their gables so festooned with starflower that it looks like a perpetual festival. Nothing could be further from the truth. Egahazy is an angry city, aggressive and cowed, sullen. I keep my Ledbeck Teltai in my bag. But the anger is not directed at me, though from the story I heard at the Kamahu Huntavi, my fellow humans on this world have not graced our species. It is the anger of a country under occupation. On walls and doors, the proclamations of the Duke of Yu are plastered layer upon layer. Her pennant, emblazoned with the 4 white hands of House Yu, flies from public buildings, the radio station mast, tower tops, and the gallows. Her Javros patrol streets so narrow that their grappa can barely squeeze through them. At their passage, the citizens flash jagged glares, multer altiplano oaths, And there is another sigil, an 8-petaled flower, a blue so deep it seems almost to shine. I see it stenciled hastily on walls and doors and the occupation force posters. I see it in little badges sewn to the quilted jackets of the Agassians, and in tiny glass jars and low-set windows. In the market of Yent, I witnessed Javros overturn and smash a vegetable stall that dared to offer a few posies of this blue bloom. The staff at my hotel were suspicious when they saw me working up some sketches from memory of this blue flower of descent. I explained my work and showed some photographs and asked, what was this flower? A common plant of the high altiplano, they said. It grows up under the breath of the high snow, small and tough and stubborn. Its most remarkable feature is that it blooms when no other flower does, in the dead of the great night. The Midnight Glory was one name, though it had another, newer, which entered common use since the occupation. The Blue Empress. I knew there and then that I had found Arthur. A pall of sulphurous smoke hangs permanently over the valley of kilns, lit with hellish tints from the glow of the kilns below. A major ceramic center on a high, treeless plateau. How are the kilns fueled? Volcanic vents do the firing, but they turn this long defile in the flank of Mount Tuluera into a little hell of clay, bones, smashed porcelain, sand, slag, and throat-searing sulfur. Glahenta is the last of the porcelain towns, wedged into the head of the valley, where the river Idis still carries a memory of freshness and cleanliness. The pottery houses, like upturned vases, lean toward one another like companionable women. And there is the house to which my questions guided me, as my informants described not the greatest but perhaps the meanest, not the foremost but perhaps the most prominent, tucked away in an alley. From its roof flies a flag, and my breath caught not the 4 white hands of you, never that, but neither the Blue Empress. The smoggy wind turned at the hand and dagger of the hides of Grange Gorman. Swift action. To hesitate would be to falter and fail, to turn and walk away back down the valley of the kilns and the 10,000 steps. I rattle the ceramic chimes. From inside, a huff and a sigh, then a voice, worn ragged, stretched and tired, but unmistakable. Come on in. I've been expecting you. Me crepitant, move bit volutens. Westcott's wandering star. A wind-mobile vine, native of the Istaria altiplano, that grows into a tight spherical web of vines which, in Venerian great day, becomes detached from an atrophied rootstock and rolls across country carrying it on the wind. A central calyx contains woody nuts that produce a pleasant rattling sound as the wandering star is in motion. Cut paper, painted, laid, and gummed, perhaps the most intricate of the Venerian papercuts. The Seer's Story. Tea. I have it sent up from the Camahu when the stickmen make the return trip. Proper tea. Irish breakfast. It's very hard to get the water hot enough at this altitude, but it's my little ritual. I should have asked you to bring some. I've known you were looking for me the moment you set out from Lagusa. Do you think anyone can wander blithely into Glahenta? Tea. You look well. The years have been kind to you. I look like shit. Don't deny it, I know it. I have an excuse. I'm dying, you know. The liquor of the vine, it takes as much as it gives. And this world is hard on humans. The great days you never completely adjust, and the climate. It's not the thin air up here, it's the molds and fungi and spores down there. And the ultraviolet. It dries you out, withers you up. The town healer must have frozen 20 melanomas off me. No, I'm dying. Rotten inside. A leather bag of mush and bones, but you look very well, Ida. So, Patrick shot himself. 15 years too late, says I. He could have spared all of us. Enough of that. But I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you have someone who cares to treat you the way that you should be treated. I am the merciful one, the seer, the prophet of the blue pearl, the earthman, and I am dying. I walked down that same street you walked down. I didn't ride, I walked right through the center of town. I didn't know what to expect. Silence, a mob, stones, bullets. To walk right through and out the other side without a door opening to me. I almost did. At the very last house, the door opened and an old man came out and stood in front of me so that I could not pass. I know you, he pointed at me. You came the night at the Javros. I was certain then that I would die, and that seemed not so bad a thing to me. You were the merciful one, the one who spared our young. And he went into the house and brought me a porcelain cup of water, and I drank it down, and here I remain, the merciful one. They have decided that I am to lead them to glory, or more likely to death. It's justice, I suppose. I have visions, you see. Pula flashbacks. It works differently on terrines than tents. Oh, they're hard-headed enough not to believe in divine inspiration or any of that rubbish. They need a figurehead. The repentant mercenary is a good role, and the odd bit of mumbo-jumbo from the inside of my addled head doesn't go amiss. Is your tea all right? It's very hard to get the water hot enough this high. Have I said that before? Ignore me, the flashbacks. Did I tell you I'm dying? But it is good to see you. Oh, how long is it? And Richard, the children, and Grange Gorman, and his Ireland, of course. Oh, what would I give for an eye full of green, for a glimpse of summer sun, a blue sky. So, I have been a con man and a lover, a soldier and an addict, and now I end my time as a revolutionary. It is surprisingly easy. The group of 7 Altiplano People's Liberation Army does the work. I release the gnomic pronouncements that run like grass fire from here to Agassi. I did come up with the Blue Empress motif, the midnight glory blooming in the dark under the breath of the high snows. Apt. They're not the most poetic of people, these potters. We drove the Duke of U from the valley of the kilns of the Ishtar Plain. She is resisted everywhere, but she will not relinquish her claim on the Altiplano so lightly. You have been in Agassi. You have seen the forces she's moving up there. Armies are mustering, and my agents report rigibles coming through the passes and the palisades. An assault will come. The Duke has an alliance with House Shorth. Some agreement to divide the Altiplano up between them. We're outnumbered. Outmaneuvered and outsupplied, and we have nowhere to run. They'll be at each other's throats within a great day, but that's a matter of damn for us. The Duke may spare the kilns. They're the source of wealth. Matter of damn to me. I'll not see it one way or another. You should leave Ida, Pula, and local wars. Never get sucked into them. Another flashback. They're getting briefer, but more intense. Ida, you are in danger. Leave before the night. They'll attack in the night. I have to stay. The merciful one, the seer, the prophet of the blue pearl, can't abandon his people. But it was good, so good of you to come. This is a terrible place. I should have never come here. The best traps are the slowest, and you walk through all the places and all the lives and all the years, never thinking that you already in the trap. Then you go to turn around and it's closed behind you. Ida, go as soon as you can. Go right now. You should have never come. But oh, how I hate the thought of dying up here on this terrible plain to see Ireland again. V. volanti musco, altiplano, air moss. The papercut shows part of a symbiotic lighter-than-air creature of the Astari altiplano. The plant part consists of the curtains of extremely light-hanging moss that gather water from the air in low clouds. The animal part is not reproduced. Shredded paper, gum. He came to the door of his porcelain house, leaning heavily on a stick, a handkerchief pressed to mouth and nose against the volcanic fumes. I had tried to plead with him to leave, but whatever else he has become, he is a hide of Grange Gorman, and stubborn as an old donkey. There is a wish for death in him, something old and strangling and relentless with the gentlest eyes. I have something for you, I said, and I gave him the box without ceremony. His eyebrows rose when he opened it. I stole the Blue Empress. I know. I had to keep it out of Patrick's hands. He would have broken and wasted it like he broke and wasted everything. Then my slow mind, so intent on saying this confession right, that I had practiced on the space crosser and in every room and every mode of conveyance on my journey across this world, flower to flower, story to story, my middle-aged mind tripped over Arthur's 2 words. You knew? All along. You never thought that maybe Richard, maybe Father or Mammy or one of the staff had taken it? I had no doubt it was you. For those very reasons you said, I chose to keep your secret, and I have. Arthur, Patrick is dead. Rathangan is mine. You can come home now. If it were that easy. I have a great forgiveness to ask from you, Arthur. No need. I did it freely. And do you know what? I don't regret what I did. I was notorious, the Honorable Arthur Hyde, jewel thief and scoundrel. That has a currency out in the world. It speaks realms that none of the people I used it on asked to see the jewel, or the fortune I presumably had earned from selling it, not one. Everything I have done, everything I have done on reputation alone. It's an achievement. No, I won't go home, Ida. Don't ask me to. Don't raise that phantom before me, fields of green and soft Kildare mornings. I'm valued here. The people are very kind. I'm accepted. I have virtues. I am not the minor son of Irish gentry with no land and the arse hanging out of his pants. I am the merciful one, the prophet of the blue pearl. Arthur, I want you to have the jewel. He recoiled as if I had offered him a scorpion. I will not have it. I will not touch it. It is an ill-favored thing, unlucky. There are no sapphires on this world. You can never touch the blue pearl. Take it back to the place it came from. For a moment I wondered if he was suffering from another one of his hallucinating seizures. His eyes, his voice were firm. You should go, Ida. Leave me. This is my place now. People have tremendous ideas of family, loyalty, and undying love and affection. Tremendous expectations and ideals that drive them across worlds to confess and receive forgiveness. Families are whatever works. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry I wasn't what you wanted me to be. I forgive you, though, as I said, there is nothing to forgive. There. Does that make us family now? The Duke of U is coming, Ida. Be away from here before that. Go. The townspeople will help you. And with a wave of his handkerchief, he turned and closed his door to me. I wrote that last over a bowl of altiplano mate at the Stickman's caravanserai in Yelta, the last town in the valley of the kilns. I recalled every word clearly and precisely. Then I had an idea, as clear and precise as my recall of that sad, unresolved conversation with Arthur. I turned to my valise of papers, took out my scissors and a sheet of the deepest indigo, and carefully from memory began to cut. The stickman watched curiously, then with wonder. The clean precision of the scissors, so fine and intricate, the difficulty and accuracy of the cut absorbed me entirely. Doubts fell from me. Why had I come to this world? Why had I ventured alone into this noisome valley? Why had Arthur's casual acceptance of what I had done, the act that shaped both his life and mine, so disappointed me? What had I expected from him? Snip went the scissors, fine curls of indigo paper fell from them onto the table. It had always been the scissors I turned to when the ways of men grew too much. It was a simple cut. I had the heart of it right away. No false starts, no new beginnings. Pure and simple. My onlookers hummed in appreciation. Then I folded the cut into my diary, gathered up my valises, and went out into the waiting spider car. The eternal clouds seemed lower today, like a storm front rolling in. Evening is coming. I write quickly, briefly. Those are no clouds. Those are the ridgeables of the Duke of U. The way is shut. Armies are camped across the Altiplano. Thousands of soldiers and Javrosts. I am trapped here. What am I to do? If I retreat to Glahenta, I will meet the same fate as Arthur and the valley people. If they even allow me to do that. They might think that I was trying to carry a warning. I might be captured as a spy. I do not want to imagine how the Duke of U treats spies. I do not imagine my Terrene identity will protect me. And the sister of the seer, the Blue Empress, do I hide in Yelta and hope that they will pass me by? But how could I live with myself knowing that I had abandoned Arthur? There was no way forward, no way back, no way around. I am an aristocrat, a minor one, but of stock. I understand the rules of class and breeding. The Duke is vastly more powerful than I, but we are of a class. I can speak with her gentry to gentry. We can communicate as equals. I must persuade her to call off the attack. Impossible. A middle-aged Irish widow, armed only with a pair of scissors. What can she do? Kill an army with gum and tissue, the death of 1,000 Papercuts. Perhaps I could buy her off, a prize beyond prize, a jewel from the stars, from their goddess itself. Arthur said that sapphires are unknown on this world, a stone beyond compare. I am writing as fast as I am thinking now. I must go and face the Duke of U. I am of Ireland, a citizen of no mean nation. We confront the powerful. We defeat empires. I will go to her and name myself, and I shall offer her the Blue Empress. The true Blue Empress. Beyond that I cannot say, but I must do it, and do it now. I cannot make the driver of my spider car take me into the camp of the enemy. I have asked her to leave me and make her own way back to Yelta. I am writing this with a stub of pencil. I am alone on the high altiplano. Above the shield wall, the cloud layer is breaking up. Enormous shafts of dazzling light spread across the high plain. 2 mounted figures have broken from the line and ride toward me. I am afraid. Yet I am calm. I take the Blue Empress from its box and grasp it tightly in my gloved hand. Hard to write now, no more diary. They are here. Vi Gloria, Media Nocte. The Midnight Glory, or Blue Empress. Card, paper, ink. This story was originally published in Old Venus, edited by Gardner, Dozois, and George R.R. Martin. What a beautifully written story. There's everything in this. From the adventure of this world building, which was incredible, to the underlying story of familial relationships and how mistakes in the past, or what could have been considered a good decision at the time, laid the paths of these two people, Arthur and Ida, across all of the inner worlds. I actually really enjoyed this. What are your thoughts on the story? You can leave us a comment or a question at the Clarkesworld Magazine website itself, or you can go to the About Us page where all of our contact information is listed. Again, we start off a whole new year with a whole new issue, January 1st. I do hope you come back and listen to those podcasts as well. And until then, I bid you a very fond and warm au revoir, à bientôt, adieu, and aloha, and every other word that means, oh my God, 2017 is finally over. I hope the new year brings you nothing but warmth, love, joy, health, and success.